Gate agent throws away black girl's passport. Seconds later, what she did leaves the airline in shock. Oops. Looks like you won't be flying anywhere today. Those words hang in the air at Gate K-12 of O'Hare International Airport as a gate agent stands over a trash bin, a satisfied smirk spreading across her face. A 13-year-old black girl stares in disbelief at where her passport just landed, crumpled among coffee cups and discarded boarding passes. Most kids would panic. Most would cry. Most would feel powerless against an adult in uniform who just destroyed their federal document. But Maya Johnson isn't like most kids. Within seconds, she reaches into her backpack and pulls out her phone. Her hands tremble slightly, but her voice is steady and clear as she hits record. She states her name, the date, the time, and the location. Then she says something that makes the gate agent's smug expression freeze solid. What you just did violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based on race in programs receiving federal assistance. This airport receives federal funding. Your actions constitute racial profiling under federal law. I'm recording this for legal purposes. The agent's face drains of color. Other passengers pull out their phones and start recording. Someone gasps. Someone else whispers, "Oh my God!" Within minutes, airport security will arrive. Within hours, this video will have millions of views. Within days, an entire airline will be forced to answer for what happened at this gate. But how did we get here? How does a 13-year-old girl know civil rights law better than the adults trying to intimidate her? And what happens when her father, a senior civil rights attorney with the ACLU, arrives at that gate 20 minutes later? Welcome back to Black and Bruised Stories. If you're new here, you've just joined a community dedicated to truth, justice, and survival. Show some love by clicking the like and subscribe button. Before we dive deeper into this story, drop a comment where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. This is the story of Maya Johnson, a girl who refused to be silent in the face of blatant discrimination. A girl who turned one moment of injustice into a movement that changed airline policies across America. What happens next will leave you absolutely stunned. Welcome back to Black and Bruised Stories. If you're new here, you've just joined a community dedicated to truth, justice, and survival. Show some love by clicking the like and subscribe button. Before we dive deeper into this story, drop a comment where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. Let's rewind to earlier that morning in a beautiful townhouse in Chicago. Sunlight streams through historic windows, illuminating walls covered with framed photographs. Maya shaking hands with President Obama, standing beside Congressman John Lewis, holding a sign at the March for Our Lives rally. This is Maya Johnson at 13 years old, and she's already lived a life steeped in activism and civil rights education. Her father, Elijah Johnson, is a senior civil rights attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union, who's won landmark discrimination cases across the country. His name carries weight in legal circles. Her mother, Sophia, is a middle school principal dedicated to educational equity. Maya didn't just grow up in a household that talked about justice. She grew up in a household that fought for it every single day. This morning, Maya is packing for a trip to Los Angeles to visit her aunt, but she's not packing like a typical teenager. Along with her clothes, she carefully places debate team materials, books about constitutional law, and a folder containing printed passenger rights documentation. On her hoodie, there's a patch that reads, "Know Your Rights," in bold letters. In the kitchen, Elijah is making breakfast while simultaneously quizzing his daughter. He asks her about Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. Without hesitation, Maya explains that it prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in any program receiving federal financial assistance, which includes airports. Her father smiles with pride and asks what she should do if someone violates her civil rights. Maya's answer is immediate. Document everything, stay calm, cite specific laws, and contact him immediately. Sophia watches this exchange with a mixture of pride and worry. Her baby is only 13, and she's about to fly across the country alone. But Elijah reminds his wife that their daughter is more prepared than most adults. He's been training her since she was old enough to understand what discrimination means. He's taught her that knowledge is power, that documentation is evidence, and that calm persistence wins over angry outbursts every single time. Before Maya leaves, Elijah hands her something special, a small laminated card listing passenger rights and emergency legal contacts. It's worn at the edges from being carried on previous trips. Then he reminds her of something Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said. "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Maya finishes the quote without prompting. She's heard it 1,000 times. She's about to live it. At O'Hare International Airport, Maya waves goodbye to her parents at the security checkpoint. The TSA screening goes smoothly. One officer even compliments her Know Your Rights hoodie, saying his own daughter is interested in law. Maya smiles and thanks him, then heads toward her gate with confidence. She's flown alone 6 times before without any problems. She has no reason to expect today will be different. As she walks through the terminal, she reviews debate notes on her tablet. Her topic for the upcoming competition is systemic racism in American institutions. She's researched everything from housing discrimination to police brutality to unequal education funding. She's prepared speeches, gathered statistics, and crafted arguments. What she doesn't know yet is that she's about to get a real-world education that no debate prep could have provided. Gate K-12 comes into view. The departure board shows Flight 447 to Los Angeles, scheduled to leave in 45 minutes. Behind the desk stands Karen Davis, the senior gate agent, late 30s with a tight blonde ponytail, cold blue eyes, and an American flag pin on her crisp uniform. Maya doesn't approach immediately. Instead, she observes. This is something her father taught her. Watch how people treat others before you interact with them. You can learn everything you need to know about someone's character by watching how they treat people who can't benefit them. And what Maya observes over the next 5 minutes makes her stomach tighten with recognition. Davis greets white passengers with warm smiles and friendly conversation. She processes their boarding passes quickly, wishes them pleasant flights, and makes small talk about their destinations. But when passengers of color approach her desk, everything changes. Her smile disappears. Her tone becomes clipped and formal. She scrutinizes their documents with exaggerated suspicion. A Latino family approaches the desk, and Maya watches Davis examine their passports with intense focus. Despite the fact that this is a domestic flight and passports aren't required, Davis demands to see them anyway. Then she asks the mother a question that makes Maya's jaw clench. "Are these children really yours? They don't look like you." The mother is stunned into silence, fumbling to explain that yes, these are her biological children, and she doesn't understand why she's being questioned. Davis eventually allows them through, but the damage is done. The family walks away looking humiliated and shaken. Maya recognizes what she's witnessing. She's read about it in her father's case files. She's studied it in her debate research. She's heard stories about it from family members and friends. This is racial profiling. This is discrimination. And now it's her turn to approach the desk. She takes a deep breath, squares her shoulders, and walks forward with her head high. She's polite, professional, and prepared. She greets Davis with a friendly good afternoon and states that she's checking in for Flight 447 to Los Angeles. Davis barely glances up. Her tone is flat and disinterested as she demands to see a boarding pass and identification. Maya presents her mobile boarding pass on her phone and her valid United States passport. Davis's eyes narrow the moment she sees Maya. Something shifts in the air. Something cold and dangerous. Davis takes the passport and begins examining it with exaggerated scrutiny, flipping through pages slowly, holding it up to the light, comparing the photo to Maya's face again and again. Finally, Davis speaks, and her first words send a chill down Maya's spine. She says that something doesn't look right about the passport. Maya is confused and asks what the problem might be. Davis ignores the question and asks where Maya's parents are. When Maya explains that she's traveling alone to visit family and that she's 13, which is above the minimum age for solo travel, Davis's expression hardens even further. Davis asks how a 13-year-old afforded a plane ticket. The implication is clear and insulting. Maya maintains her composure and explains that her parents purchased the ticket. She asks directly if there's a problem with her documentation. Davis responds by questioning how she can know the passport actually belongs to Maya. Maybe it's her sister's passport. Maybe it's stolen. Maya feels anger rising in her chest, but she remembers her father's training. Stay calm. Don't give them ammunition. She points out that her photo, name, and date of birth are clearly visible in the passport and match her boarding pass exactly. Davis tells her not to get smart. She demands to know where Maya was born. When Maya calmly states that she was born in Chicago and that this information is clearly printed on page 2 of the passport Davis is currently holding, the agent's face hardens like stone. Davis asks what Maya is traveling to Los Angeles for. Maya explains that she's visiting her aunt. Then she asks a question that changes everything. Why is she being questioned when other passengers aren't? Davis's response is vague and defensive. She claims she asks questions when something seems suspicious. Maya looks Davis directly in the eyes and asks, "What exactly seems suspicious? Is it her valid passport, her confirmed ticket, or is it her skin color?" The question hangs in the air like smoke. Nearby, passengers stop what they're doing and start paying attention. Several pull out phones. Everyone can feel the tension crackling between this teenage girl and the gate agent who's 3 times her age. Davis stands abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Her voice rises as she demands to know if Maya is accusing her of racism. Maya doesn't back down. She calmly states that she's asking why she's receiving different treatment than other passengers, and that it's a reasonable question to ask. Davis says she doesn't like Maya's tone or attitude. Maya responds that she's been respectful and is simply asking about the status of her travel documentation. Then, Davis makes her accusation official. She declares that the passport looks fake to her. Maya asks on what basis and what specific security features appear fraudulent. Davis is flustered by the specificity of the question. She stumbles over her words and finally snaps that she doesn't have to explain herself to a child. But Maya isn't backing down. She cites federal aviation regulations that state passengers have the right to know why they're being denied boarding. She's requesting that information. Davis realizes at this moment that she's not dealing with a typical teenager. This girl knows the law. This girl is articulate, prepared, and unafraid. And that seems to make Davis even angrier. Davis changes tactics. She states that she's denying Maya boarding because her documentation is suspicious and because Maya is being confrontational. When Maya asks to speak with a supervisor, Davis delivers the crushing blow with a cold smile. She is the supervisor. She's the senior gate agent. There's no one above her at this gate. Maya's heart sinks, but her resolve doesn't waver. She remembers her father's instructions. Document everything. Stay calm. Know the law. She's about to put all 3 into practice in a way that will shock everyone watching. Davis continues to hold Maya's passport, tapping it against the counter with theatrical contempt. She announces that since the passport is clearly fraudulent, she's going to confiscate it. This is when Maya's legal knowledge comes into play. She calmly informs Davis that gate agents don't have legal authority to confiscate federal documents. Only customs officers, federal agents, or judges have that power under specific circumstances. Davis is visibly shocked. She demands to know how Maya knows this. Maya's response is simple and devastating. Her father is a civil rights attorney, and she knows her rights. For a moment, Davis is speechless. Then something ugly crosses her face. It's the look of someone who's been challenged and who's decided to abuse what little power they have. Davis's voice drips with malice as she speaks. She says that if Maya wants to play a little lawyer, she'll show her what she thinks of her rights. Then Davis does something unthinkable. She walks deliberately toward the trash bin behind the desk. She holds Maya's passport over the opening. Maya's eyes widen as she realizes what's about to happen. She tries to stop it, citing Title 18, U.S. Code Section 1543, which addresses destruction of federal property. But Davis doesn't care about federal codes. She releases the passport. It tumbles down into the trash, disappearing among crumpled napkins, coffee cups, and discarded boarding passes. Gasps echo through the gate area. Several passengers audibly express their shock. One woman says, "Oh my God," loud enough for everyone to hear. Davis crosses her arms and delivers her final blow with a satisfied smirk. She says that it looks like Maya won't be flying anywhere today. Then she calls for security. This is the moment. This is when most people would break down, would cry, would rage, would crumble under the weight of such blatant discrimination and abuse of power. But Maya Johnson is not like most people. If you're watching this story unfold and feeling that anger, that sense of injustice burning in your chest, then you understand why it's so important to know your rights. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next is going to show you exactly why knowledge is the most powerful weapon against discrimination. And drop a comment telling me, have you or someone you know ever experienced discrimination while traveling? Your stories matter. Your voices matter. Now let's see how Maya fights back. Maya Johnson stands at gate K-12, and the entire trajectory of her young life has just shifted. Her passport is in the trash. A gate agent has just committed an act of blatant discrimination in front of dozens of witnesses. Security has been called. Most 13-year-olds would be crying right now. Most adults would be screaming, but Maya does neither. She takes 3 slow, deep breaths, in through her nose, out through her mouth. Her father's voice echoes in her mind like a mantra. Anger clouds judgment, but calm reveals truth. She reaches into her backpack with steady hands and pulls out her smartphone. She opens the camera app. She positions the phone to capture both herself and Karen Davis, and then she hits record. Her voice, when she speaks, is clear and measured. She states her full name, Maya Marie Johnson. She states the date and time. She states her location, Gate K-12, O'Hare International Airport, Chicago. And then she describes exactly what just happened in language so precise, it sounds like a legal deposition. She explains that senior gate agent Karen Davis just threw her valid United States passport into the trash bin after Maya questioned why she was being treated differently than other passengers. She describes the interrogation she endured, the questions about how she afforded her ticket, the accusations that her passport might be stolen or fraudulent, and the refusal to process her boarding despite having valid documentation. Davis's reaction is immediate and aggressive. She demands that Maya turn the camera off right now, but Maya doesn't comply. Instead, she cites a legal case that most adults have never heard of, Glick versus Kiff. She explains that under this precedent, she has a First Amendment right to record public officials performing their duties in public spaces. She states clearly that this is a public airport, and Davis is performing her duties as a government-contracted employee. Davis is stunned into momentary silence. This teenager just cited case law, but Maya isn't finished, not even close. She continues speaking into the camera, and what comes next makes jaws drop throughout the entire gate area. She explains that Davis has violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. She describes how this federal law prohibits discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. She points out that O'Hare International Airport receives federal funding, which means all employees and contractors are bound by this law. She states that Davis's actions constitute racial profiling under federal law. Other passengers are now pulling out their own phones. Within seconds, at least 8 people are recording this confrontation from different angles, An elderly white woman with silver hair is filming. A black businessman in a suit is filming. A young Asian American couple is filming. The Latino family with 3 children from earlier is filming. Everyone recognizes that they're witnessing something extraordinary. Davis realizes she's losing control of the situation. She tries to grab Maya's phone, reaching across the desk with her hand extended. But Maya steps back quickly, creating distance. Her voice remains calm as she warns Davis not to touch her. She states clearly that assault of a minor is a criminal offense and that any physical contact will be recorded and reported. Another gate agent approaches. His name is Alex Kim, a young Asian American man in his 20s with kind eyes and visible concern on his face. He asks Karen what's going on. Davis immediately tries to paint herself as the victim. She claims that this girl has been disruptive and confrontational, but Maya doesn't let the false narrative stand. She addresses Alex directly and respectfully. She explains that she's being denied boarding without legal cause. She states that Davis threw her passport in the trash and that she has the right to file a formal complaint under 14 CFR Part 16, which governs aviation consumer protection. She requests that Alex retrieve her passport from the trash bin as it contains her federal travel document. Alex Kim looks genuinely shocked. He glances at Davis, then at the trash bin, then at Maya's calm, composed face. He asks if Davis really threw a passenger's passport away. Maya confirms that yes, she did, and that it happened approximately 4 minutes ago, so the passport should still be near the top of the bin. Multiple witnesses can verify what happened. Davis tries to stop Alex from going to the trash bin. She practically shouts at him not to dare, but Alex has already seen enough to know that something is very wrong here. He walks to the trash bin, reaches in carefully, and pulls out a dark blue U.S. passport. He opens it, examines it, and his expression shifts to confusion and concern. He looks at Davis and asks what she was thinking. The passport is completely legitimate. Davis insists that the girl was being difficult, but Maya corrects the record once again. She states that asking why you're being treated differently than other passengers isn't difficult. It's advocating for your civil rights. It's standing up against discrimination. It's refusing to accept injustice simply because someone in a position of minor authority tells you to be quiet. By now, a crowd of 15 to 20 passengers had gathered. The gate area has fallen almost completely silent, except for Maya's voice. Passengers who were previously rushing to board their flights have stopped to watch. People at neighboring gates are craning their necks to see what's happening. The energy in space has completely shifted. What started as a gate agent abusing her power over a lone teenage girl has become a public reckoning captured on multiple cameras. An elderly white woman with a kind face speaks up. She says she saw the whole interaction. She witnessed Davis being incredibly rude to this young lady for no justifiable reason. The woman says she was appalled by what she watched. A black businessman in an expensive suit adds his voice. He states that he's also recording everything. He calls it what it is, discrimination, clear as day. He says he travels frequently and has seen this kind of treatment before, but he's never seen someone so young stand up to it with such clarity and courage. The Latino mother, who was questioned earlier, finds her voice. She admits that Davis treated her family the same way, questioning whether her children were really hers based solely on their appearance. She says, with visible regret, that she should have said something at the time, but she was too shocked and intimidated. Now she's glad that Maya is speaking up for everyone who stayed silent. Davis is losing control completely. She tells all the passengers to mind their own business, but they don't. They refuse because what they're witnessing isn't just one girl being mistreated. It's a pattern of discrimination being exposed. It's a system of unchecked power being challenged, and they're realizing that their silence would make them complicit. Maya seizes this moment to address the crowd directly. Her words carry the weight of someone far older than 13. She thanks everyone for being witnesses. She explains that when we see injustice and stay silent, we become part of the problem. Speaking up is how change happens. One voice can be dismissed, but many voices together create a chorus that cannot be ignored. Then she makes a phone call that will change everything. She dials her father's number. Elijah Johnson answers on the second ring, his voice tight with concern. He immediately asks if she's okay. Maya's response is calm and factual. She tells him she needs him. Gate K-12. The senior gate agent threw her passport in the trash and denied her boarding. She has everything on video. She has multiple witnesses. She cited Title VI and Part 16 regulations, just like he taught her. Elijah's voice changes. There's pride there, fierce and unmistakable. But there's also anger, not at Maya, but at the situation. He asks if she stayed calm. She confirms she did. He asks if she documented everything. She confirms she did. Then he calls her what she is. His girl, his brave, brilliant, powerful girl who just did everything exactly right. Elijah tells her to put him on speaker. His voice fills the gate area, clear and authoritative. He instructs Maya not to let anyone intimidate her. He tells her he's calling the airport director and the ACLU right now. He tells her not to board any plane until he gets there and that he's 20 minutes away. Maya relays her father's message to Davis. She explains that Elijah Johnson is a senior civil rights attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union. He's contacting airport administration at this very moment. He'll be arriving shortly. She suggests that Davis might want to retrieve the passport, issue an apology, and contact her own supervisor before this situation escalates further. The name Elijah Johnson has an immediate effect. Davis's face goes completely pale. She knows that name. Anyone who works in customer service in the Chicago area knows that name. Elijah Johnson has won landmark discrimination cases against hotels, restaurants, retail stores, and yes, airlines. He's appeared on national news. He's testified before Congress. And he's relentless when it comes to defending civil rights. Davis realizes in this moment that she hasn't just discriminated against any random teenager. She's discriminated against the daughter of one of the most prominent civil rights attorneys in the country. She's done it in front of multiple witnesses. It's been recorded on video from 8 different angles. And now that attorney is on his way to the airport. The tables haven't just turned, they've completely flipped. The gate agent, who was so confident in her power just minutes ago now, looks like she's facing her worst nightmare. And Maya, the 13-year-old girl who was supposed to be intimidated into silence, stands tall with her phone still recording and justice on her side. An older black woman approaches Maya with tears in her eyes. She tells Maya that she's doing something important. She says that she's in her 70s, and she's been fighting discrimination her entire life. She marched with Dr. King. She sat at segregated lunch counters. She registered black voters in the South during the height of the civil rights movement, and she's seeing that same spirit of resistance in this teenage girl right now. She tells Maya to never stop fighting, never stop speaking truth to power, never stop demanding the justice she deserves. Maya feels emotion welling up for the first time since this ordeal began, but she keeps it together. She thanks the woman and promises that she won't stop. She won't be silent. She won't accept discrimination as normal or inevitable. And she won't let anyone make her feel like asking for equal treatment is being difficult or disrespectful. Alex Kim, the other gate agent, has been watching all of this with growing concern. He approaches Maya quietly and apologizes. He admits that he's witnessed Davis treat passengers of color differently before. He's seen her subject them to extra scrutiny, ask invasive questions, and process their documents more slowly than white passengers. But he never knew how to report it. He was afraid of retaliation. He's only been working for the airline for 6 months and he needs this job. Maya looks at Alex with understanding. She knows that speaking up isn't easy, especially when you're worried about your livelihood. But she also knows that systems of discrimination survive because good people stay silent out of fear. She tells Alex that what he's doing right now, speaking up as a witness, is brave and important. She encourages him to document everything he's seen and to report it to management. She promises that her father will make sure he's protected from retaliation. Airport security arrives at this moment. 2 officers in uniform push through the crowd. Officer Ramirez, a Latino man in his 30s, and Officer Williams, an older black man with graying hair and a calm demeanor. Davis immediately launches into a performance. Fake tears well up in her eyes as she tells the officers that she's so glad they're here. She claims that this girl has been harassing her, recording her without permission and causing a disturbance. But Maya is ready. She addresses the officers calmly and respectfully. She identifies herself by name. She explains that she was denied boarding without legal cause and that the gate agent threw her valid passport in the trash. She states that she has video evidence of everything that occurred. Multiple passengers witnessed the incident. She clarifies that she's not being disruptive. She's exercising her legal rights as outlined in federal law. Officer Ramirez asks if she can lower her phone. Maya respectfully declines. She explains that she's continuing to document the interaction for her safety and to ensure an accurate record of events. Officer Williams studies Maya's face carefully. There's something in her calm confidence, her precise language, her knowledge of legal terminology that catches his attention. Williams asks if her last name is Johnson and if her father is Elijah Johnson. When Maya confirms this, Williams's entire demeanor shifts. He tells her that he knows Elijah personally. Elijah helped his nephew with a police brutality case several years ago. He's a good man who fights for justice. Williams turns to Davis and asks in a much more serious tone, "What happened here?" Davis tries to repeat her story about suspicious documentation, but she's immediately interrupted by multiple passengers. They call out that her story isn't true. They shout that they saw everything. They insist that what they witnessed was clear discrimination. The elderly white woman holds up her phone and announces that she has video of Davis deliberately throwing the passport in the trash. Alex Kim adds his voice to the chorus. He tells Officer Williams that he personally retrieved the passport from the trash and that it's completely legitimate. He states that he's witnessed Davis treat other passengers of color differently throughout the day and over previous shifts. He's ready to provide a formal statement about a pattern of discriminatory behavior. Officer Williams examines the passport that Alex is still holding. He confirms that it's valid, properly issued, and shows no signs of forgery or tampering. He asks Davis directly why she threw away a legitimate passenger's federal document. Davis stumbles over her words. She claims it was an accident, but the elderly white woman immediately contradicts this. She describes in detail how Davis held the passport up deliberately, maintained eye contact with Maya, and then dropped it. There was nothing accidental about it. The situation is now completely out of Davis's control. What started as her wielding power over a lone teenager has become a public exposure of discrimination with multiple witnesses, video evidence, and security involvement. And in exactly 12 minutes, Elijah Johnson will arrive at this gate with the full weight of the ACLU behind him. Officer Williams radios for a supervisor, while Officer Ramirez works to keep the growing crowd calm and organized. Within minutes, a woman in a sharp business suit strides through the terminal with the purposeful walk of someone who commands respect. This is Patricia Morrison, the airport operations director. She's a black woman in her 50s with steel gray hair, intelligent eyes, and an air of absolute authority. She's been managing this airport for 12 years, and she's seen a lot, but she's never seen anything quite like this. Morrison arrives at the gate and immediately assesses the situation. She takes in the crowd, the recording phones, the teenage girl standing calm and composed with her own phone still rolling, and the gate agent, who looks like she wants the floor to swallow her whole. Morrison's voice cuts through the noise like a blade. She demands that someone explain what's happening at her airport. Officer Williams provides a concise briefing while Morrison's expression grows progressively harder. Then Williams does something that proves how seriously the situation is being taken. He pulls up videos from 3 different passengers on their phones and shows them to Morrison in sequence. Morrison watches a recording from the elderly white woman that shows Davis holding the passport and deliberately dropping it. She watches a video from the black businessman that captures Maya calmly citing legal statutes while Davis tries to intimidate her into silence. She watches a recording from the Latino mother that shows Davis's discriminatory questioning of multiple passengers. By the time Morrison finishes reviewing the evidence, her jaw is set and her eyes are blazing. She turns to Maya first, which is significant. In most situations like this, authorities speak to the adult employees first and treat young people as secondary. But Morrison recognizes that Maya is the victim here, and she deserves to be addressed first and with respect. Morrison introduces herself and tells Maya that she's deeply sorry for what happened. Her apology sounds genuine, not like corporate damage control. But Maya has learned from her father that apologies without action are just words. So she thanks Morrison for the apology. But then she says something that catches everyone off guard. She states clearly that she doesn't just want an apology, she wants accountability. Morrison nods slowly. She respects this response. She tells Maya that she'll have accountability. Then she turns to Davis with an expression that could freeze fire. She informs Davis that she's suspended immediately, pending a full investigation. Davis tries to argue. She starts to say that Morrison can't do this, but Morrison cuts her off with the authority of someone who absolutely can. Morrison demands Davis's badge, radio, and access card. Davis is desperate now. She insists that the girl was being disrespectful and that she accused Davis of racism, but Maya corrects the record once again. She points out that she asked why she was being treated differently than other passengers. That's not disrespectful. That's self-advocacy. That's standing up for civil rights. That's refusing to accept discrimination as normal. Morrison has heard enough. She tells Davis that in her 30 years working in aviation, she has never seen an employee throw a passenger's passport in the trash. She states that Davis's employment is under serious review and that the investigation will be thorough and complete. She tells Davis to hand over her badge and leave the gate area immediately. But Maya isn't finished yet. She addresses Morrison with the same calm professionalism she's maintained throughout this entire ordeal. She states that she'd like to file a formal discrimination complaint under federal aviation regulations. Morrison says that's absolutely her right, and that all necessary forms will be provided. Then Maya makes a request that impresses everyone listening. She asks if it's possible to request data on complaint patterns for this particular agent. She explains that if this is a pattern of behavior rather than an isolated incident, other passengers may have been affected and deserve justice as well. Morrison looks at this 13-year-old girl with something like awe. That's an astute request, she says. The investigation will absolutely look into complaint histories and patterns. Morrison pulls out her own phone and starts making calls. She's contacting human resources, legal department, and corporate headquarters. This isn't being swept under the rug. This is being taken to the highest levels of management. At this moment, there's a commotion at the edge of the crowd. People part like water as a man in a sharp suit runs through the terminal. He's breathing hard. His tie is slightly askew and his face is a mixture of concern and fury. This is Elijah Johnson, and he's just covered what should have been a 20-minute drive in 12 minutes. Maya sees her father, and for the first time since this ordeal began, her composure cracks slightly. She doesn't cry, but her voice wavers as she calls out to him, "Dad." Elijah pushes through the final few people and reaches his daughter. He pulls her into a tight embrace. And for a moment, she's not a teenage activist reciting civil rights law. She's a 13-year-old kid who's just been through something traumatic and needs her father. Elijah holds Maya for several seconds, then pulls back to look at her face. He checks to make sure she's really okay, scanning her for any signs of distress beyond what he can see in her eyes. Then he tells her words that she'll remember for the rest of her life. He says that she did everything right, every single thing. He tells her he's so incredibly proud of her, and his voice breaks slightly on the word proud. But Elijah is also a civil rights attorney, and he's here on a mission. He turns to address Morrison, Officer Williams, and the crowd of witnesses. He introduces himself formally, Elijah Johnson, Maya's father and senior counsel with the American Civil Liberties Union. His voice carries the weight of authority earned through decades of fighting discrimination cases. He states that he wants to know what systemic changes will be implemented to prevent this from happening to another child, another passenger, another human being who deserves dignity and respect. Morrison responds that the airline takes this situation extremely seriously. But Elijah doesn't accept corporate platitudes. He cuts through the diplomatic language with surgical precision. He says that with all due respect to Director Morrison, taking something seriously isn't enough. His daughter shouldn't have had to cite federal law to receive basic human dignity. A 13-year-old child shouldn't have to know more about civil rights protections than the adults who are supposed to serve the traveling public. Elijah demands to know what training Davis received on implicit bias. Morrison admits that all employees undergo annual diversity training. Elijah's response is devastating in its simplicity. Clearly, it's insufficient. He demands to see the airline's discrimination complaint data. He wants to know how many other passengers of color have filed complaints against Karen Davis specifically. He wants to know how many complaints were dismissed or ignored. He wants to know what patterns exist across the entire airport. The crowd is completely silent now. Everyone is watching this masterclass in advocacy. Elijah isn't yelling. He's not being aggressive or disrespectful, but his words carry the force of someone who knows the law inside and out, who has the resources to follow through on every demand, and who will not be placated with empty promises. Then, Maya speaks up, and what she says next sends ripples through everyone watching. She states that she wants a public apology from Davis, not a private statement, not a corporate email, a public apology. Right here, right now, in front of all these witnesses, she wants Davis to acknowledge specifically what she did wrong. Every head turns toward Davis, who looks like she'd rather be anywhere else on Earth. She tries to resist. She stammers that she doesn't think this is necessary. But Morrison's voice is steel. She orders Davis to apologize. Davis's apology when it comes is barely audible. She mutters that she's sorry, but Maya isn't accepting a vague, meaningless statement. She asks Davis to specify what she's apologizing for. Davis reluctantly admits she's sorry for throwing the passport away, but Maya pushes further. She demands that Davis apologize for treating her differently because of her race. Davis can't bring herself to say it. The words stick in her throat. The silence stretches out, uncomfortable and damning. Officer Williams, who's been watching this entire exchange, adds his voice. He tells Davis to say it. Say the words. Acknowledge what you did. Elijah gives Davis a 10-second countdown. He states clearly that if a genuine apology acknowledging racial discrimination isn't issued immediately, the video footage will go viral. The story will be on every news outlet by tonight, and the ACLU will file a federal civil rights lawsuit, not just against Davis personally, but against the airline for maintaining a hostile environment that enabled her discriminatory behavior. Davis breaks with tears of humiliation and anger streaming down her face. She finally says the words. She apologizes for treating Maya differently because of her race. She admits that it was wrong. She acknowledges that it was discrimination. Her voice is bitter and resentful, but the words are spoken and recorded on multiple devices. The apology is documented. The crowd erupts into applause. It's not celebratory applause. It's the sound of people recognizing that justice, real justice, just happened right in front of them. An authority figure was held accountable. A system was challenged. A young black girl refused to be silenced, and she won. Security escorts Davis away from the gate. As she walks through the terminal for what will be the last time as an airline employee, she shoots one final look at Maya. It's a look of pure venom of someone who blames the victim for her own consequences. But Maya doesn't flinch. She stares back with steady eyes, and Davis is the one who looks away first. After Davis disappears into the terminal, Morrison turns her full attention to making things right. She tells Maya that her ticket will be fully refunded. She'll be booked on the next available flight to Los Angeles in first class. The airline will provide travel vouchers for Maya's entire family for future flights. A formal letter of apology will be issued from corporate headquarters. But just like before, Maya doesn't accept compensation as a substitute for change. She thanks Morrison for the gestures, but states clearly that she wants more than vouchers and upgrades. She wants policy change, real systemic change that will prevent this from happening to others. Morrison asks what Maya is suggesting. And this is when Maya does something that leaves everyone, including her father, absolutely stunned. She reaches into her backpack and pulls out a folder. Inside are neatly organized documents, research papers, statistical analyses, and policy recommendations. She's been carrying this folder prepared and ready. Maya explains that she wants mandatory anti-discrimination training for all customer-facing staff, not just a 1-hour annual video that employees can sleep through. She wants training that includes real scenarios, accountability measures, and consequences for discriminatory behavior. She wants a passenger bill of rights posted prominently at every gate in language that's clear and accessible. She wants an easily accessible complaint process with third-party oversight so that complaints aren't just reviewed by the same people who might want to protect their colleagues. And she wants quarterly diversity audits with results published publicly so passengers can see whether the airline is actually improving. Elijah stares at his daughter with something like shock. He asks her when she prepared all of this. Maya's response is matter of fact. She explains that she created these policy recommendations last year for her social justice debate case. She researched airline discrimination patterns across the country, analyzed complaint data that was publicly available, and drafted evidence-based solutions. She just never imagined she'd need to use her research for herself. Morrison takes the folder and flips through the documents. Her expression shifts from surprise to genuine respect. She tells Maya that these recommendations are not only reasonable, they're actually excellent. They're specific, measurable, and actionable. She commits to bringing them to the executive leadership team at the next board meeting. Elijah adds his voice. He informs Morrison that he and Maya will be following up personally to ensure implementation. He states that his daughter just handed the airline a roadmap to avoid future lawsuits, public relations disasters, and federal investigations. The smart move would be to implement these recommendations immediately and publicly. Maya then does something that cements her legacy in that moment. She turns to address the crowd of passengers who have been watching, supporting, and documenting everything. She thanks them all for speaking up. She tells them that when we witness discrimination and stay silent, we become complicit in that discrimination. But when we use our voices, our phones, our presence as witnesses, we make it impossible for injustice to hide in the shadows. The black businessman who's been recording approaches Maya. His voice is thick with emotion as he tells her that his daughter is her age. He's going to show his daughter this video tonight. He's going to teach her that she has power, that she has rights, and that she should never accept being treated as less than anyone else. The elderly white woman who marched in the civil rights movement comes forward next. She's crying openly now. She tells Maya that she reminded her why she marched in the 60s. She says that seeing young people stand up for justice gives her hope for the future. She says that the fight isn't over, but watching Maya today proved that the next generation is ready to carry it forward. Alex Kim, the gate agent who spoke up as a witness, approaches Maya and Elijah. He thanks Maya for her courage and tells Elijah that he has documentation of other incidents involving Davis. He has notes on his phone about dates, times, and passengers who were treated unfairly. He's been collecting this information for weeks, but didn't know who to report it to or whether it would even matter. Now he knows it matters. Now he knows his voice counts. Elijah takes Alex's contact information and assures him that he'll be protected from retaliation. He explains that whistleblower protections exist for exactly this reason, and that the ACLU will ensure Alex doesn't face consequences for doing the right thing. Morrison's phone has been ringing continuously. She steps away to take several calls, and when she returns, her expression is serious. She informs Elijah and Maya that she's just spoken with the airline's chief operating officer and general counsel. The airline is launching an immediate comprehensive investigation into Davis's employment history. They're pulling all complaint records, reviewing security footage from her shifts over the past 6 months, and reaching out to passengers who filed previous complaints to gather additional testimony. Morrison also shares that based on the evidence already collected today, the airline has decided to terminate Davis's employment effective immediately. She won't just be suspended pending investigation. She's fired. Her behavior was so egregious, so clearly discriminatory, and so thoroughly documented that the airline sees no path forward for her continued employment. Furthermore, Morrison explains, the airline is implementing an immediate review of all customer service protocols. They're bringing in external consultants to assess training programs. They're establishing a new passenger advocate position that will report directly to the executive level. And they're committing to reviewing Maya's policy recommendations seriously and implementing those that meet legal and operational standards. Elijah nods his approval, but makes one thing clear. The ACLU will be monitoring this situation closely. If the airline's commitments turn out to be empty promises designed to avoid a lawsuit, they'll proceed with legal action. But if the airline follows through genuinely and makes real changes, this can become a model for how companies should respond when discrimination is exposed. Maya has one more request. She asks Morrison if it would be possible to connect with other passengers who experienced discrimination from Davis. She wants to offer support, share resources, and potentially organize collective action if needed. Morrison provides her business card and promises to facilitate those connections while respecting passenger privacy. The crowd begins to disperse slowly, but before people leave, many approach Maya to shake her hand, take photos with her, or simply tell her that what she did mattered. A young black girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, approaches shyly with her mother. The girl tells Maya that she wants to be just like her when she grows up. Maya kneels down to the girl's eye level and tells her something beautiful. She says that the girl doesn't need to wait until she grows up. She can stand up for what's right today. She can learn her rights today. She can use her voice today. Age doesn't determine your power. Knowledge and courage do. If you've made it this far in this story, you understand why this matters. You understand why knowing your rights is a form of self-defense. You understand why documenting discrimination is crucial. You understand why speaking up as a witness can change everything. Hit that subscribe button right now if you believe these stories need to be told. And drop a comment answering this question. What's one right that you think every young person should know? Your answers could help educate others. Let's keep this conversation going. 2 hours later, Maya boards her rescheduled flight to Los Angeles in first class. The flight attendants treat her with genuine warmth and respect. The lead flight attendant, a black woman named Ashley, approaches Maya before takeoff. She tells Maya that word has spread through the entire airline about what happened. She says that Maya is an inspiration. She thanks Maya for holding the airline accountable because that accountability protects employees like Ashley as well as passengers. Elijah decided to cancel his meetings and accompanies Maya on the flight. As the plane takes off and Chicago disappears beneath the clouds, father and daughter sit together in comfortable silence. Eventually, Maya speaks. She wonders aloud whether what she did will actually matter. Will the airline really change its policies? Will other employees think twice before discriminating? Will anything actually be different? Elijah responds with the wisdom of someone who's fought these battles for decades. He tells Maya that change doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments. It happens when one person refuses to accept injustice. It happens when witnesses decide to speak up instead of looking away. It happens when institutions are forced to confront their failures publicly. What she did today was plant a seed. Whether it grows into lasting change depends on continued pressure, ongoing accountability, and people refusing to let the moment fade into forgotten history. He also tells her something else. Her video is already going viral. While they were waiting to board, Elijah saw it spreading across social media. Hashtags are trending. News outlets are picking up the story. Civil rights organizations are amplifying the message. Maya's moment of courage at Gate K-12 is becoming part of a larger conversation about racial profiling, passenger rights, and youth activism. Maya pulls out her phone and sees hundreds of notifications. Messages from friends, family, debate team members, and complete strangers. Comments from people sharing their own experiences with discrimination. Emails from journalists requesting interviews. A message from the John Lewis Center for Civil Rights asking if she'd be willing to speak at their youth leadership ceremony. An invitation from her debate team to present her experience as a case study in youth activism. She also sees something that makes her pause. Other passengers from Gate K-12 have posted their videos online with supportive captions. The elderly white woman wrote that she witnessed extraordinary courage from a young woman who refused to be silenced. The black businessman wrote that his daughter watched the video and told him she's no longer afraid to speak up when she sees injustice. The Latino mother wrote that Maya inspired her to file her own complaint about how Davis treated her family. The impact is spreading like ripples on water. One girl standing up for her rights at an airport gate is inspiring others to stand up in their own lives. That's how movements begin. That's how change happens. Not through grand gestures from powerful people, but through ordinary individuals deciding that enough is enough. By the time Maya's flight lands in Los Angeles, 6 hours later, the story has exploded beyond anything she could have imagined. Her video from Gate K-12 has been viewed 3 million times. The hashtag Justice for Maya is trending nationally. News outlets from CNN to local stations are covering the story. Civil rights advocates are using her case as a teaching moment. Over the following weeks and months, the story continues to develop. The airline releases an official statement acknowledging that discrimination occurred and announcing immediate policy changes based on several of Maya's recommendations. More importantly, other passengers begin coming forward with their own complaints against Davis. A black businessman reports being questioned about his first-class ticket. A Muslim woman describes being subjected to additional screening. An elderly Asian couple reports Davis speaking to them in exaggeratedly slow, loud English. The pattern is undeniable. National news outlets request interviews. After discussing it with her parents, Maya agrees to appear on several programs. In her first interview on a major network morning show, when the host asks how a 13-year-old knows so much about civil rights law, Maya's answer resonates across the country. She explains that her parents taught her that knowledge is power. They taught her that black children, especially black girls, are often not afforded the assumption of innocence. They taught her that she would need to be twice as prepared to receive half the respect. And they taught her that these realities, while unfair, shouldn't make her bitter. They should make her powerful. The interview goes viral. Educators across the country begin discussing whether civil rights education should be mandatory in schools. Maya wins her debate nationals competition, incorporating her personal experience as evidence. 6 months after the incident, she's invited to testify before a congressional committee examining discrimination in transportation. She presents her research, shares her experience, and answers questions with clarity and confidence. The congressional testimony leads to proposed legislation addressing discrimination in transportation, including many of the recommendations Maya originally drafted. The bill faces opposition from industry groups, but has strong support from civil rights organizations. 1 year after the incident, Maya is invited back to O'Hare International Airport for a special event. The airline is unveiling new anti-discrimination policies and training programs based on her recommendations. At the event, Morrison acknowledges publicly that the airport and airline failed passengers of color for too long and commits to ongoing vigilance. 3 years after Gate K-12, Maya is 16 and preparing for college. The discrimination legislation that included her recommendations has just passed Congress and is headed to the president's desk. Within weeks, it will become federal law. Airlines across America will be required to implement the training programs, oversight mechanisms, and accountability measures that Maya first drafted for her debate competition. The final scene isn't at an airport or courtroom. It's in a Chicago high school classroom, where Maya is guest speaking to a civics class. At the end of her presentation, a shy student asks what they should do if something like this happens to them. Maya tells them to educate themselves about their rights. Knowledge is the foundation of resistance. Stay calm in the face of injustice. Composure is strategic, not submissive. Document everything. In the digital age, your phone is the most powerful accountability tool. Speak up even when scared. Courage is acting despite fear. Find allies. Change rarely happens alone. But then she adds something deeper. Imagine the world you want to create. Don't just resist what's wrong. Envision what's right. Don't just tear down systems of oppression. Build systems of justice. Don't just say no to discrimination. Say yes to equity, inclusion, and human dignity. She tells them they have more power than they know. Their voices matter. Their actions matter. And if a 13-year-old girl at an airport gate can change airline policies across the country by simply knowing her rights and refusing to be silent, imagine what an entire generation of empowered young people can do. The students erupt in applause. As Maya walks out of the school building, her phone buzzes. It's a message from a 15-year-old girl from Texas who just experienced discrimination at a mall. The girl writes that she remembered Maya's story. She pulled out her phone and recorded the interaction. She stayed calm and cited the Civil Rights Act. And because she documented everything, the discriminatory employee is now facing consequences. The message ends, "Thank you. You saved me from accepting that treatment as normal. You showed me I have power." Maya responds simply, "You always had that power. I just helped you see it. Now go help someone else see theirs. That's how we change the world." 3 years ago, at Gate K-12, a 13-year-old black girl faced a choice: accept discrimination or resist. She chose resistance, and that choice changed everything. The legislation will protect millions of travelers. Young people across the country now know their rights, but perhaps most importantly, a generation of young activists is rising with the understanding that they don't have to wait until they're adults to create change. Because that's exactly what Maya Johnson did. She knew her rights. She stayed calm. She documented everything. She cited the law. She demanded accountability. She inspired witnesses to speak up. She turned one moment of discrimination into a movement for change. And if one teenager at one airport gate can do all of that, imagine what millions of empowered young people can accomplish. So here's my final question for you. If you witness discrimination happening to someone else, would you speak up? Would you record it? Would you be a witness for justice, or would you look away? Drop your answer in the comments. Share your own experiences. Tell us how you'll use this story to empower others, because that's how movements grow. That's how change happens. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of the change. Now go forth and know your rights. Stand up for justice. Document injustice. Demand accountability. Be the witness someone needs. Be the ally someone deserves. Be the change the world requires. Because if Maya Johnson could change America at 13 years old, imagine what you can do. Remember, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Now it's your turn to stand up. Karen Davis was terminated after investigation revealed systematic discrimination against 47 passengers over 18 months. The airline implemented all of Maya's policy recommendations. She continues advocating for civil rights and youth empowerment. Sometimes knowing your rights changes everything.